Welcome to the Smoke and Rope Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Basor. Today is episode 60. And today we have back on three-time guest, Ida Lee from the MICIA Deputy Director, and we're here to have a big announcement. First, I want to say thanks for being back on, Ida.
Well, thank you so much, Ryan, for inviting me back on. I love coming on your show. It just gives me that sense of calm your roll down,
Yeah,
breathe.
we might not be as formal as some of the other shows, but we still get it done. And back all together today. For, I think it's the first time in 3 weeks. We are back together. We got Tom at Relief. Tom, where were you at?
We are in the office. I'm back. I'm back to work. Had a couple weeks off, first time in about 4 years, so it was nice to get away. But it's also nice to be back to work. Good to see you, everyone, especially Ida.
Yeah.
Good to see you too, Tom.
And Kevin over at Drew. Kevin holding it down every week. What's happening?
Oops, I hit the wrong button there. Not much, just came in on Friday of the holiday weekend, get this show recorded, do some gardening today, and then try to get home a little bit early and spend some time with the family. So, yeah,
Awesome.
looking forward to the show.
Cool. So am I. So Ida's been on three times before, and for those that listen every week, definitely have heard her background. And for those that have been in cannabis for a while in Michigan, already knew about it. And like we talked about before, I started hearing about Ida and what she was doing with her daughter Bella when I was in prison, reading about it and hearing, getting visits from Robin Schneider and Jamie Lowell and Mark Passerini, and just a huge advocate. And I don't want to go into it too much on this because I'd like Ida to make her announcement and also, tell the journey and the story. So with that, I just want to welcome Ida. Have you go ahead and announce what you got going, and then go ahead and talk for a while. We want to listen and hear it, and so does our audience. So thank you, Ida.
Okay, yeah. Just be patient with me. um, so we are creating or recreating all of the medicine that my daughter Bella was on. And so I'm launching a brand called Bella's Journey. It's coming out November this year. And I'm super excited because it gave her a quality of life. She was on pharmaceuticals for 5 years, and we used medical marijuana for 5 years. So I feel like I have a really good gauge as to her quality of life and what she went through versus what she was able to attain at the end of her life, and also how we were able to use the medicine in her end of life care. Just to give you a little bit of background, she was born with something called 1p36 deletion syndrome, which means she was missing the tip of her first chromosome. So it's the short arm of the first chromosome. The only way to identify this chromosome is through a microarray test. And at the time, when she was born, this test had only been around for about 2 years. So even to this day, a lot of the kids still do not get diagnosed right away. There's a lot of other health issues that go on if they survive birth. It's currently thought 1 in 5,000 to 10,000 are born yearly with this syndrome. So it is pretty prevalent. Unfortunately, where a lot of the kids with Down syndrome, you are able to identify them with the 1P. Some of them are similar, but there's so many wide ranges. It's hard, to identify. But with her, she was born right away. We were in the hospital. We were not able to bring her home after delivery. They did a spinal tap on her because she wasn't able to latch on. She couldn't keep her temperature up. Her temperature was dropping, and typically what they say that means is that's a fever in a newborn. They can't keep up their body temp. And so it was at that time discovered that she was also born with viral meningitis. Um, we were in the hospital for about 21 days after birth. She was born December 9th. It was right around Christmas. That was really challenging. but she was born, before we left the hospital. She was having breathing issues, and that's when it was diagnosed that she had ventricular septal disease, or holes in her heart. And her holes were pretty large, and the only way that they really could describe that to me was it looked like Swiss cheese. I hate that term. I don't agree with it. That's not the image that I wanted to see. Um, so she had a lot of complications right from the get-go. When she was 3 months old is when her seizure started. I was on the phone with my mom, and her eye just dropped. I thought she was having, a stroke. I didn't know what it was. I rushed her up to our local hospital, and that's when I really started. We entered into the medical community at that point. We were at that hospital for about 6 hours before we were transferred to our local children's hospital. The seizures were never really addressed. They don't know what to do for kids. They don't know what to do for adults. And so it's really hard to navigate through the medical field when you're looking for answers and there really aren't any answers. So she was diagnosed with something called Lennox-Gastaut, which is a rare form of seizure disorder. Um, Anything was a trigger for her. Rain hitting the side of the screen. It could even be snowflakes hitting the side of the screen. Because of her, I started finding other modalities of healing, and I came across something called the NAET diet, which is an allergy elimination diet treatment. It's not a diet, it's a treatment. But what they do is they hold vials and they muscle test you to see what you're sensitive to. So through different, healings, I was able to help bring her more of a quality of life. Um, Sorry. um, she also had something called eosinophilic esophagitis. So she threw up. We went through a period. She was right around 2 years of age. She was throwing up on average 9 times a day. It didn't matter what I was doing, what I was feeding her. I, was panicked. I kept taking her to the doctor. I think we saw, gosh, like 5 different gastroenterologists, and one of them, said, I think this is what she has. We're going to give her the unofficial diagnosis. The only way to get this diagnosis is to go through and biopsy the esophagus. And I started shaking my head no, and she's, pulling out her computer to get the surgery scheduled. And I said, no, no, no. And she's looking at me and she's like, well, we need to get this diagnosis. And I said, well, hold on, you are telling me what you think's wrong with her. So it's up to me to figure out how to fix it. And I can't do surgery. They biopsy like 20 to 40 different parts of the esophagus. Um, and that's when I came across the GAPS diet. It's called the Gastro and Psychological Syndrome diet. And that's healing the gut through bone broth and fermented foods. I was very hesitant to start that diet with her. There's not a lot of education or support in the medical community. You think there is. You're told all day long there's support. There's not. um, and you're surrounded by all these dietitians, who are telling you what your child needs, when essentially what it was is she was allergic to food. I started doing my own food elimination diet with her, and I figured out everything that she was allergic to. That's when I discovered that corn can have over 77 different names. So unintentionally, I was buying what I thought was organic food and reading all the ingredients. Lo and behold, there was corn in there. I'd feed it to her, and sure enough, she'd throw up. So when I transitioned her onto the GAPS diet, it was crazy because it was like she was starving. I couldn't feed the food to her fast enough. And it was just like I was constantly making food. And that, transitioned me once I was able to identify all of her food allergies. I really started investigating food and how it affects our body. And food is medicine. Everything we ingest is in some way, shape, a form of medicine. It's just how we look at it. But so, that was very challenging. she would have screaming fits where there was one Easter, that's when it started. It was Easter. I want to say she was about 3. It started at 4 a.m. and it was a solid scream. There was no hiccups. There was no catching of the breath. There was no nothing. It was scream, full on screaming from 4 a.m. until 9 p.m. that night, constantly. And that triggered, I don't know what in her, but she started having those screaming fits from then on. I had gone from April until December with those screaming fits, trying to just work through them. And I called the doctor and I'm like, I'm at my wit's end. I don't know what to do at this point. And truthfully, I can't remember the medicine that we put her on, but it was a really powerful pharmaceutical drug to get her to calm down. And the doctor said, use this sparingly. Don't overuse it, use it as needed. I used it 2 times on her and it didn't really do anything. It seemed like it aggravated her more. So that January is when she had gone into status epilepticus. Again, she was 5 years old. I decided to keep her at home. It was Martin Luther King weekend. It happened. I had the University of Ann Arbor on the phone with me, walking me through the process. And I had told them that I wanted to use medical marijuana. I did not want to use pharmaceuticals. They weren't working. They were not her rescue medicine. And I had 3 conversations with the nurse per the doctor. And essentially we were discharged from the University of Ann Arbor neurology department because I wanted to put her on medical marijuana. For 2 months, I called around the state looking for a doctor to pick us up, and no one would pick us up because of wanting to try medical marijuana. In the meantime, I had gotten her card and I was dosing her with it. And to watch your child have a seizure and to be able to give her 1 ml rectally, a suppository, and have that seizure stop within 30 seconds to a minute is powerful. And as I'm calling around the state and I'm explaining to the doctors what I'm doing and how this is helping her, no one was picking us up. So I panicked, and I called Robin and I said, I don't know what to do, help. And, our caregivers at the time had stepped up. They found us a doctor, Dr. Constantino out of Beaumont, to pick us up. I should back up though. Before we had actually switched over, the university had picked us back up as patients. And I was in the process of transitioning over to Dr. Constantino at that time. But that's when I found out that the tinctures and the oils fell into a gray area. And so it was legal to smoke marijuana, but it was illegal to ingest it or eat a gummy or make a topical. And that didn't make any sense to me because here I have this medicine. For me, it was a miracle. It was working. I was witnessing it right before my eyes. And that's when I started lobbying, with Bella and going to the Capitol and pulling the senators and the legislators off the Senate floor and sharing her story with them and, asking them and thanking them, first of all, for making marijuana legal. We can smoke it. Thank you. But at the same time, what you're telling me is it's illegal to ingest it or to stop my daughter's seizures. She can't smoke it. The smoke's not going to help her. She needs a long-term medicine. And so it was because of her story that we were able to pass the MMFLA. And again, it's bringing an understanding that just because you have a quality of life doesn't mean that somebody else doesn't deserve a quality of life. Doesn't matter what it looks like. If there's no harm being done to anyone else, everyone deserves a quality of life, period. No judgments. And for me, that's my passion is providing that quality of life. When I first put her on medical marijuana, I didn't tell anyone. I was really afraid to. It's scary. I grew up Southern Baptist. Weed, the devil's weed. I mean, it's grouped with narcotics. It's grouped, with cocaine. And it's like, hold on. We have to look at this as a plant, this is a medicine, and understand what it truly is. And it's not about, I understand the social injustices that come along with it. And it's disgusting to me how this plant has just been demonized the way it has been, and cultures have suffered because of it. And people still today, it's gross. But anyways, I sent her to school, and I had let her teachers and the bus drivers know. I said, listen, we're trying a new med. Let me know what side effects you're seeing. Within the first week, the teacher had called me and she was like, Ida, what are you giving this child? And I was like, okay, Kathy, calm down. What's going on? And she was like, she's a little bit calmer. She's starting to look around a little bit more. She's paying attention. And I was like, oh, okay, it's been a week. And she's like, yeah. And I said, okay. And the bus drivers were reporting the same thing. So the screaming fits that she would have at home, she would have on the way to school and on the way from school. And for the first time, she rode home without screaming. Now, that's not to say she wasn't fussing and there wasn't other stuff going on, but she wasn't doing her screaming. And so that was a huge red flag for me that something was working. And I just said, okay, let's all just keep observing, and a month went by and everyone's like, okay, what is she on? Like, we need to know what you're giving her. And I just started opening up, and that's when, I started becoming more vocal about it and sharing it with everyone, because it's like, what, this is what we're doing and this is helping her, and everyone needs to know about it, because it is another form of healing. It's another form of medicine, and it may not be right for you, but it may be right for someone else.
You have to say to other parents that may be struggling with similar situations, that are finding with traditional medicine pushback, or just being left behind, what kind of advice or pathways or anything can you give to the listeners that might be in similar type situations with someone that...
It's really just trusting your gut instinct. And that's the hardest thing, because there's no one else that's going to support you. So it's understanding that what you're doing is right no matter what. It's also understanding that you don't know what you don't know until you know it. There are plenty of mistakes that we all make. And it's not until they're made can we look back and say, oh my God, what was I thinking? What was I doing? And it's learning from that and moving forward. And reaching out to those of us, who have been in that situation.
Right. Well, is there a way for people to do that?
Not really.
Just a support group or something.
Get an email maybe, or contact us or anything like that.
Well, I think a support group is really good. I mean, there are support groups online for cannabis parents. I'm not active on those anymore after Bella. I walked away from a lot of different things. I just, but there are support groups out there, Tom, yes. But again, it's hard to find those in your state who you can contact and who to help. So I don't know how to, that's a good point. I need help.
Well, I think that's what a lot of it, what you did with your brand. I heard a while ago, and it's like just one of those life moments when you just know something makes sense and something has to be done and has to happen. So tell us about the process of having this idea and to the point where we're going to launch on it. It's not easy, it's fun, it's exciting, it can be scary too, but a lot of our listeners are interested in that side of it, and yours is a brand that is going to transcend state lines and just being a regular brand. There's quite a mission to it, so give us a little feedback.
Yeah, that's my hope, my dream. So she, like I said, she was on pharmaceuticals for 5 years. I gave her Valium. She was on 21 different meds at one time. I mean, we talk about a pharmaceutical. It was in my pantry. She suffered from stage 1 renal failure because of the pharmaceuticals. So when she was 3 months old, and she had the seizures, they were trying to insert a PICC line through her groin, and they gouged the artery. And we essentially were in the position to possibly lose that leg. So there was a lot of pain that she was in. She was able to keep her leg. It never healed properly. It never formed properly. It was always thinner than the other one. It's pretty intense when you're actually being told and being prepped that your child's going to have their leg amputated. So from the seizure, she was given Topamax, and from her heart, she also had congestive heart failure, and she was on the Lasix for that. And that is what caused her to go into stage 1 renal failure. It attacked her kidneys. It was too much for her kidneys to try to filter all that medicine through. So I really, like I said, we were in the hospital with her for 10 years. The first 10 months of her life was 5 days a week. Medicine was just pumped through her. And I fought really hard to slowly wean her off of all that, because I would dose her with, her anti-seizure medicine, and she would be lively and she would be cognitive. And then I would dose her, and you would just kind of see her just like slump and just kind of lose the visual. And there's no quality to that. So I slowly started weaning her off of all of her medicine, because the pharmaceuticals, the anti-seizure medicines, weren't working. When I put her on the tinctures, that's when I started to notice she was starting to be a little bit calmer. And I apologize, they're mowing. So there's going to be weed whackers going across. But I lost my train of thought as well. I apologize. Where did I leave off? I'm sorry.
Just as far as going to going to hospital 5 days a week and weaning off of that.
Yeah. So, I weaned her off of all of her pharmaceutical medications, not with the advice of the doctors. I did that myself. There was no benefit that I saw to it whatsoever. Around that time is when I started juicing for her too. But when we started giving her the tinctures, I was witnessing a spark start to come back in her eye. She was getting more vocal. She had a form of yes and no and a form of mama. She would laugh and she would giggle. So, I started playing with all of them. I started using, and I called it her rescue medicine at the time. When she would start to have, anxiety, or I could feel those screaming fits coming on, I would give her 0.2 mLs, by her mouth. And again, just to see the pressure and the anxiety, just, her take a deep breath and just relax and calm down. And oh my gosh, the side effect is she's smiling and she might giggle for a minute. Okay. But she's not screaming, and again, to go through a time where you're medicating your child because they're screaming and there's something wrong. They're in pain. They're nonverbal. They can't tell you what's wrong. You physically can't see anything. And then to be able to give them a very small dose of a plant medicine that within 20 minutes calms her down is just mind-blowing to me. And it's like, why aren't we educating and showing people how to use this and what to do. And then there's other alternatives to medicines. We don't have to listen to the doctors, and they don't work. I mean, look at all of what she had to go through, all the surgeries and the mistakes that the doctors made, unfortunately. When you are in the medical community, when you're in those appointments, you're overdosed. She was overdosed on propofol when she was in the hospital. She was given an adult dose. So I'm standing right there talking to the doctor, and sure enough, the nurse gave her the dose, and she coded, and the room filled with 50 people. They're asking me if they, want a pastor brought in, and I said, no, I need to call my husband and my boys at the time, and I got to get them here. And it's knowing that there's other alternatives, and you don't have to put yourself or your child through what the medical community is doing for money, as far as I'm concerned.
Practicing medicine. Correct.
Exactly. We're all used as guinea pigs.
Yeah, Ida, your story is so courageous. What both you and Bella went through. It's amazing to hear the will of people to help others and to want to have a quality of life. And I commend you for all the efforts you put in. I'm sure you felt like you were kind of against the wall and didn't really have a choice in the matter, but you got up every day and kept going forward. And like I said, that just shows the character of you, and I just think it's absolutely amazing. To kind of switch gears a little bit, I wanted to talk to you about the products that you are launching. Do you have an idea at this point, what the doses it will be and what products exactly you'll have? And then how did you, when you were first starting off treating Bella, how did you, where was your starting point? I get calls from people somewhat regularly asking me about pediatric treatment and whatnot, and I don't know the first thing about it, and it scares the hell out of me because I don't want to give somebody some bad advice and have there be a problem and then feel responsible or whatever. And so how did you go about that? And then again, talk to me about the products that you're launching.
Okay, so initially, the best advice, my cousin Francie ever gave me was, whatever dose you want to give your daughter, take yourself. So I always tell parents that, first of all, whatever you give your child, take it yourself. And that's how I found out RSO was not a medicine for us, because I could not give her a small enough dose to where I was still feeling it. So in my mind, that's not what she needed. But we worked closely with her caregivers at the time and her doctor, and she was on a very low dose. It was 0.25, I believe. She was on 3 different tinctures, Cannabiotics, Canna X, Professor X, and Canna 4. We rotated between those, so it was a lot of trial and error. Again, I watched all of these pharmaceuticals wreak havoc essentially on her body, and nothing was working. And so for me, it was just like, I've got nothing to lose at this point. It is what it is. And I was up against the wall is what it felt like. But so her rescue medicine, I would give her as her Valium, and then I'd also use it as her suppository. And then after from the original injury from the DVT in her leg, she had to have hip surgery as well. And so what they had to do was cut the femur in half, put the bone back in socket, take a piece from her pelvis, rebuild that shelf, and then put pins and screws in her femur so she could heal. I had her rescue medicine out to give her a dose. And I was just looking at it, and I was looking at her leg, and she was shaking, she was tremoring, she was in so much pain. And so I just reached in and grabbed it and rubbed it on her leg. And it was almost instantaneous. I just saw her leg just relax. And I was like, wait a minute, what's going on here? And that's how I started making lotion for her. And I started using it myself. So it's crazy to understand that there are so many different avenues that you can use this plant for medicine. And It's just education. We don't, there's, there are some pain patches on the market today, pharmaceuticals, but there's no topical that we can actually put on our skin to take away pain. And so when you're talking to people about that, they don't believe you, and it's like, here, try it. And yeah, so that's what I'm doing. It was a lot of trial and error. We started out with small doses, and I paid attention to her seizures. I had a seizure chart. Like I said, I was able to pinpoint a lot of her triggers. So I was able to head off a lot of it by paying attention to her. I got really good at being able to smell her breath. I could smell the seizures before they were coming. And that was right around the time that we ended up getting her service dog. And Thina was not trained as a seizure dog. She was trained as a service dog, but she was able to alert us and to give Bella comfort for her seizures, which was what we wanted, was huge.
So will those products all be geared towards pediatric, or will they also be for adults as well?
So I'm not marketing towards children. I have adult sizes and small doses. And it's going to be up to, if there's parents interested, to go into the dispensaries and talk to the bud tenders, who I would like to go in and talk to and educate, because it's a comfort level. It's understanding, this isn't, we're not on a street corner getting medicine anymore. We're able to go into dispensaries that look amazing. They're boutique-y, I mean, it's breaking down those stigmas and just helping parents to say, okay, I can do this. It's okay. And so what if someone sees me? I'm giving my child a quality of life. For me, my dispensary was in Detroit. I had no problem putting all three of my kids in my car and going downtown Detroit and getting her medicine.
Ida, what was the decision on choosing the stores that you wanted to be in at first? Education is obviously going to be key, and this is your brand, and you going out and talking to those staffs is going to further the education in the state, I think, better. I was just sitting here thinking about it. Nothing's going to move it faster, quicker than that. So, how did you choose those stores, and do you stores and tell them the same story?
Yeah, so I'm choosing stores that have the medical model. It's not to say that I'm not going to have recreational products as well, but this is a medicine. And those are the first stores that I'm launching in, are the stores that are more geared towards medicine or are medicine only. And then we'll be branching out from there. I'm sorry, Ryan, what was your other question?
If your plan was to, I know we've talked about you're going to go out and talk to the staffs of these stores and educate them. And I know, and what we heard today, I mean, that are going to be, listening to this, that are wondering about cannabis as medicine and their kids. I mean, this is just to listen in my mind. So, I think it'd be real powerful if you went out and told that same story to these staffs and explained it in that way, if you're comfortable.
Yeah, and that's what I want to do. I do want to, education is key. There's not enough education out there. I am in the process of putting together a website that'll have education on it, and how to dose and what it can help alleviate. This is not a cure-all. I'm not making any of those claims, but I am saying it can help and it can give a quality of life. And oh, hey, this is what it can help for. I would love to be able to go into schools. Growing up, we had, those assemblies, war on drugs. Okay, well, let's do a medicine tour. It's starting to teach our children, again, this is a medicine, and understanding why this is a medicine, and it's okay to take this as a medicine, and giving them a healthy respect for it. you know, it, just an example, okay? My dad hunted. He had, golly, 6 or 7 rifles underneath our bed. They weren't loaded, but all of us kids knew exactly where they were. We could not touch them, but we could pull them. I mean, my dad would pull them out, let us look at them. We could shoot them, whatever. But there was a healthy enough respect that me and my siblings did not go in there and touch those guns because we had access to them. But there was a healthy enough respect for them that was taught to us. And so it's teaching our children a healthy respect for this as a medicine. We teach them about our pharmaceuticals. Well, it's the same thing. And I do want to go in and educate and help other parents that have issues, and other adults that are fighting issues as well.
Yeah, 100%. It's some people are afraid to talk about it still because it's still a taboo issue. And if you speak to children as, just an equal instead of talking down to them, they start to listen and they develop a healthy understanding and respect. I know that personally from my own children. They know, they understand, and I have no worries in my mind that there's going to be any abuse of anything that we have, because first of all, we keep it locked up, but
Right.
second of all, we're not afraid to talk to them about what it really is, because it's not scary. It's not the boogeyman. It is medicine, and we can all benefit from it at a certain point in
Right.
our lives.
Yeah. I mean, for my boys, when we brought it in, we sat them both down. We told them exactly what we were doing. Unfortunately, there was an incident with my older one that we had. So it was all of us teaching ourselves, that this is a medicine and this is why we're using it. And you firsthand saw what the pharmaceuticals were doing to your sister. So let's see what this does to your sister. They knew where her medicine was, they knew how to draw it up, and they knew how to give it to her.
Treating seizure activity, anxiety, mood swings, sleeping disorders, and dermatitis with one single medication.
Correct. I was able to wean her off of all of her pharmaceuticals and only use medical marijuana. The only, yeah, the only pharmaceuticals that were used were her end of life care for assistance.
I,
Yeah.
um, you know, um, uh, thank you for coming on and sharing this. I learned new things today and feel um, more more stressed ever as far as cannabis and the medicine that it is. But you're at the MICIA and you've done a great job there. You've been great help to the industry with and helping Robin, and been really impressed with the way you did your job. And so that's going to be kind of transitioning out. And I just wanted to ask you kind of what it's been like at the MICIA, and how just the experience. We kind of have a similar path in that aspect.
Well, you guys are my family, first of all. um, right after Bella passed away, there was unfortunately just a series of events, and I unfortunately went through a divorce. A lot of my family chose his side. There were sides chosen, unfortunately. So I really felt alone. And Robin reached out, and had asked if I was still looking for a job. And yes, and she saved me. I love what I do. I love our community. The special needs community is a very large one, but it's one that's often overlooked. There's not a lot of resources, and a lot of the parents are by themselves. And in this industry, it's very community driven. Everyone wants to help each other, and it's refreshing. It's so nice to be welcomed into a community that I'm a part of. um, and I love what I do. We still lobby. We have the events, and right now I'm doing a little bit of marketing director. So I love I love my role. I love everything that I do for it. And breaking down those stigmas.
Well, Ida, I really appreciate this. I wanted to give Kevin and Tom a chance to, say goodbye, and and what just a great show. So, Kevin, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, I just want to, again, thank you for coming on the show today. It's very courageous, you coming out and telling your story, and it needs to be told. We all need to hear it. It's very touching, and as far as your brand goes, I know how motivated you are and how driven you can be, and I know that you're going to be successful, and I just wish you all the best. We're here to support you. We love you, and love having you be a part of the family. So thanks again for coming on.
Thank you so much, Kevin.
Yeah, of course.
Tom?
Yeah, Ida, we love you so much. We love Bella, and I guess the silver lining here could be that her legacy continues by helping potentially other children in need and other people that are in this situation. Can you just remind us one more time the name of the brand and the launch date?
So the name of the brand is called Bella's Journey, and we're launching in November of 2021.
Can't wait for that, Ida. And this is just a really good reminder for everyone listening. What makes what it took to get legal in Michigan. I mean, like we might not have gotten where we did if it wasn't for Ida and Bella. So we're very unique. We've got a lot of stories, and that's the reason we have the market we do today in the community. So I'm definitely gonna podcasts out to a lot of family members that I do supply with RSO, and some of them are pediatric. I really appreciate it. See everyone next week.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.
Bye, Ida.
Bye. Take care.
Ida, you too.
Thank you.